And we're back for another HSR character analysis. We're here with Dan Heng. Honestly, one of the more popular characters out there. But before we get into him, like always, and as I'll say in all the subsequent videos, go check out the first one about Arlen if you want a bit more of an explanation about the path system, which is the character role. I explained it a bit more there at the very start, so by all means go check that out if you need it. But for now, we're just going to get right into Dan Heng, and he is a hunt character. Now, if we reference back to our little sheet here, hunt characters means single target DPS. That means he'll only be doing single target throughout his whole kit. He does not have any splash damage, no cleave, no AoE, nothing like that, just pure single target. He's going to be your bossing character, your single target burst down character. That's his role, as well as the wind element. As per usual, the elements don't mean anything. It just means that that's the element that they are. You just need to counter wind weak characters with it. But moving on, obviously he's a 4-star. If you didn't notice, purple 4-star. But moving on, basic attack again is just going to be your little energy reducer, recharger for your skill. So it just deals a bit of damage. Nothing too crazy. The values are okay. 110 at max. It's all right. But his skill is where it gets pretty nifty, and there's something to remember for later. So deals wind damage equal to a certain percentage of Dan Heng's attack to a single enemy. Again, obviously single target, it means single enemy. And then on a crit hit, there is a 100% base chance to reduce the target's speed by 15% for 2 turns. So critting with this character is very, very important. You want to be able to crit with this character because the speed reduction here is very crucial for the next part, which is his burst, which deals damage equal to a certain percentage of Dan Heng's attack to a single enemy, again single, and if the enemy is slowed, Dan Heng's ultimate damage multiplier increases by the aforementioned percentages. Now, that is crazy. But what does it mean by increased? It doesn't mean changed to these percentages, because obviously these percentages down bottom are lower than these ones up here, but essentially it means that this percentage is added to this percentage. So if the character or enemy isn't slowed, you'll be doing a baseline of 432%, which is pretty decent in my opinion. But if they are slowed, then it'll be 432 plus 129, and whatever the sum total of that is, that's the amount of damage that you'll be doing if the character is or the enemy, sorry, is slowed. So it's very crucial to actually be landing this crit hit to then apply a speed reduction to the characters, because that's what a slow means. It's just a speed reduction essentially, which is very good. So far, we're 3 abilities in and I'm loving the character already, but we keep on going. When Dan Heng is the target of an ally's ability, essentially being buffed or healed or something like that, his next attack's wind resistance penetration increases by aforementioned percentages, and this effect can be triggered again after Dan Heng has taken action one more time. Pretty good ability in my opinion if you're running a bit of a single target specific build and Dan Heng is your only wind DPS. I'm again not too crazily sure about other single target wind DPSs. We're going to cover them in the future obviously, but if Dan Heng is your wind DPS and you have a single target buffer unit, Dan Heng is going to be doing some pretty nasty damage from what I can tell, just for the first 4 abilities. A lot of penetration, a lot of slow, a lot of damage, a lot of critting. Just so far, so good. And then technique is also pretty impressive for Dan Heng specifically. Sorry, Dan Heng. After using a technique, Dan Heng's attack increases by 40% for 3 turns in the next battle. Which is pretty nifty. I would say this is a lot more for bossing. If you're coming up a single target enemy that is weak to wind, you can abuse this system of boosting his attack by a massive 40%, so you can have the massive advantage of pretty much instantly breaking his shield the moment Dan Heng attacks, which is pretty good. Is this going to be good universally? Probably not, as you're encountering trash mobs around the open world, you're going to want probably AoE damage as they're going to spawn in packs. But again, in an ideal world for him, where it's single target boss fight that is weak against wind, this is incredibly powerful. But moving on to the traces, a bit more of the passive side of the character, as the active side of the character is already really good. Going on to the passive side, when HP is at 50% of max HP or lower, reduce the chance of Dan Heng being attacked by enemies. So kind of like a stealth system, if you will, kind of like a loss of aggro kind of mechanic. So if you're below 50% or at 50%, essentially you are less likely to be attacked by enemies. Very simple, very straightforward, and very good at that. So we move on to the next one, Shadow of Despair. When launching an attack, there is a 50% fixed chance to increase speed by 20% for 2 turns. So you have a 50% chance to get more speed. it's fixed, so this is not a changeable percentage. Your status, your hit rate essentially, or your effect rate will not change this thing, so you can't increase the chance of getting this buff, which is fair enough. If you could, that would be very strong to be able to almost guarantee a 20% speed increase when you attack an enemy, because then obviously subsequently you'd get more speed to then go first again to attack again, and thus be in a very, very strong loop. Because then if you combo Asta's video with this character and get more speed, you could, it would be speed central. It'd be crazy. It would be crazy. But whatever. Let's move on. The third trace is the High Gale. Basic attack deals 40% more damage to slowed enemies. It's pretty bog standard. After you use your skill, the enemy will be slowed for 2 turns, and then when you attack with the normal attack, you'll deal 40% more damage. So you'd probably end up wanting to do that, but then again, obviously the skill does more damage, and then obviously you want to recharge it. So it makes your filler attack a lot stronger than it would naturally be, which is pretty good. Now, obviously if you want to look at the little kind of minor traces, yeah, that's fine. A lot of wind damage, a lot of single target stuff. And baseline, obviously, currently this is a baseline character. This is no eidolons, no further enhancements. It sounds great for a single target wind DPS. A lot of self-buffing, a lot of not super high reliance on supports. Obviously, having supports is an infinite bonus, but what I mean by not reliant on supports is the fact that he has a self-buff of 40% attack when you use his technique. He has, well, obviously you can't get this penetration, unfortunately, unless an ally buffs you, but I guess any ally buff would suffice in increasing this wind res penetration. He has the slow on crit, which obviously would be the advantage to you as you're slowing the enemy, thus making yourself faster. And then obviously you can kind of combo that with the potential of increasing your own speed, so you reduce their speed and increase your own speed, which is incredible. And then obviously get a massive damage boost if you're attacking on your burst with a slowed enemy. So by standalone, he sounds great, but obviously a character gets better with eidolons, right? So let's go into the eidolons. When the enemy hit has a HP greater or equal to 50%, Dan Heng's crit rate is increased by 50%, 15, sorry, not 50, 15%. Essentially, you are a bit more of an opening character. You want to use Dan Heng as an opener, not a closer, because a closer would be classified as an executor, an execute character, and that would mean below 50%. Dan Heng is an opening character. You want to use him to open the battle and do massive damage at the very start. So that's what this essentially makes a lot easier. You have 50% increased HP whilst the character is pretty much at 100% HP and up to 50. Or sorry, and down to 50. So really good so far. And then second eidolon reduces talent cooldown by 1 turn. And if we reference back to the talent is the wind resistance penetration mechanic, which only has a 1 turn cooldown, which, to be quite frank with you, once you get this eidolon, you can always have this wind res penetration buff up, as long as you are constantly buffing Dan Heng every single time, which you may or may not be doing, but it's kind of okay. As long as you have the buffs, you can do it. You may run out of buffs to trigger this, but regardless, it's still pretty good. Obviously, Eidolon 2 is skill +2 as well as basic +2, quite bog standard. Eidolon 4 is when using his ultimate to specifically defeat an enemy, Dan Heng's next action is increased and advances forward by 100%. Essentially, you kill an enemy and you're going to go again. If you kill an enemy with your ultimate, you're going to go again, is essentially what that says. The next Eidolon 5, ultimate damage +2, or ultimate level, sorry, +2, and basic attack level +1, quite standard. And then the final one, Eidolon 6, slow triggered by skill, reduces the enemy's speed by additional 10%. I do apologize, I'm a bit tired. An additional 10%, which is good. Obviously, on top of that, it has 15% baseline, changes it to 25%. Essentially, the character, if you have a decent speed build on your Dan Heng, and then you also get the speed buff from your little bit of a Tracy, and then this is at 25% and you hit him with it, you're going to probably go twice before they even go once, which is, what more could you ask for in a turn-based game, honestly? And that's the character with their Eidolons. Let me tell you, Dan Heng as the first hunt character, and this is my first time seeing a hunt character, it's fucking phenomenal. Like, at least in my honest opinion, for what you get, for how you get him, he's a free character that you get very early in the story. I believe he's the 3rd character you get if you include the main character, but the 2nd character if you don't include the main character. So, as a very early game unit, and one that you most likely will get to Eidolon 6 within a reasonable amount of time, You're getting a lot of bang for your buck here, in my opinion. Obviously, wind element, it's kind of hard to come to a conclusion of if wind is going to be or if the element is going to be a super impactful thing, as end game content is kind of like up and down in terms of the know-how. But still, very good main DPS. A lot of things to go off, and a lot of speed reduction and a lot of speed increase. So he's a bit more of a character based on going frequently. Maybe the damage values aren't as high as they could be. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to cross-reference with future characters. But the frequency is the biggest part here, as you're reducing enemy speed as well as increasing your own speed and dealing a lot of damage in those kind of windows of slow. So, Dan Heng is great baseline, but obviously it never stops there. We always have to push forward to the light cones. And if we go to the light cones and we start off with the 3 stars, both of these are great. One of them increases your crit rate at the start of every battle for 3 turns, which is this one, the arrows one, which is fine. You can use that. But it's only for 3 turns, so once those 3 turns are up, if you don't get the fight done within then, you're pretty useless then. But then darting arrows, again, is the same thing, but this time when the wearer defeats an enemy. So this one's a bit more refreshable. Once you defeat an enemy, you get a massive attack boost for 3 turns. Now, this is going to be probably the one that you use if you have no 4 stars, obviously, and if you have no 5 stars. This is going to be the one that you use around the open world if you don't have any AoE characters, and Dan Heng is your only DPS character. Very rare situation if you are rolling, obviously, if you're rolling on characters, you're going to get characters. But this is going to be your best solution if Dan Heng is your only DPS. Is after you defeat an enemy, you get a massive attack bonus, and obviously you can combo that with, as we remember, after you, if you have a certain constellation, an idol and whatnot that lets you go again after you use your ultimate to kill an enemy. Some combos can be very much made up very easily, but that's going to be the good one. Now I'm going on to the 4 stars. Obviously, his signature one is going to be his best, which is increases the wearer's attack by so on and so forth %. Baseline, you just get a base attack increase, and if there are 2 or fewer enemies on the field, increase your wearer's crit rate by a certain percentage. Very much accentuating the fact that he is a single target Andy, or at most 2 enemy Andy. You want to really just only be using this guy and hunt characters. That's really how I'm going to word this. Is hunt characters are very much only going to be extremely incredible against 1 to maybe 2 enemies, as there's probably going to be a lot of these effects where it only affects when there's only 1 enemy on the field, right? So that's going to be your best in slot, and easiest one to come to in terms of best in slot. Now, the other options are pretty fine. Sword play, each time the wearer hits the same target, again, same target, single target specific, obviously, damage will be increased by a certain percentage, stacking up to 5 times. This effect will reset when you change targets. This is why it's probably not great to have when you're doing mob clearing, as, well, let's say you kill 1 enemy, well, the next enemy you have to start from scratch in terms of damage. So a very good single target damage one, and obviously at the highest level, 16 times 5, I don't know that percentage, but it's a very high percentage at that. Very good damage. And then Return to Darkness increases the wearer's crit rate by a flat amount of damage, or a flat percent, sorry. And then after a crit hit, there is a 12 to 24% chance, obviously these are the percentages, to dispel 1 buff on the target enemy. This effect can only trigger once per attack. It's fine. This one is a bit more utility based on a hunt character if you kind of want to dispel buffs, if you're versing an enemy that has I don't know, 5 buffs on them, shields, damage boost, defense boost. This is probably going to be the one that you run for that, but obviously you're not going to run this on Dan Heng, as his signature one is going to be infinitely better, as you pretty much get the same crit rate bonus for single target enemies, but as well as getting a massive attack bonus. So go for Dan Heng's only silence remains light cone if this is your only choice. Now again, as every video, if Dan Heng is your favorite, and I'm sure there are plenty of you out there who I can't say his name, I just give up on saying his name, I'm going to call him Dan. If Dan is your favorite character, well, you're probably going to want to use a 5-star one on him, but is there a good 5-star for him? Well, you have 3 to choose from. One of them is a universal one that there is no character specific. This one is specific for Sealy, and this one I have no idea of. But starting off with the Cruising in the Stellar Sea, you have a crit rate bonus and increase your crit rate against enemies with less HP, and this is crucial, less HP than or equal to 50 by an additional so-and-so %. When the wearer defeats an enemy, increase attack by so-and-so %. This is a bit of a tough one to recommend. Now, it's good if you have it, and I probably would recommend it if you have it. The reason this is a tough one to recommend is because of the contradiction with Dan Heng, or Dan, with the less than HP, as if we remember, Dan has the, where is it? Sorry if I can just find it here somewhere. Dan has the opener. So this right here, this light cone would be a bit more akin to a executor build where you use this on a character who is going to be your executor. You're going to kill the targets with this character, whilst Dan plays a bit more of the role of the opener. So it's going to be a bit of a contradiction there. So it's a bit hard to recommend this one wholeheartedly, but if it's your only 5-star, by all means, chuck it on there. It's higher base damage values probably from the base stats, as well as these values are pretty good, and you get a massive bonus of damage just by killing the enemy, and obviously it continues for 3 turns. Base crit rate, it's good overall, but you just will not be getting this further crit rate bonus if they are below the HP, thus not getting it. But that's obviously neither here nor there. Still a great suggestion. In the night, Sealy's one increase crit rate by a certain percentage while the wearer is in battle. For every 10 speed that exceeds 100, increase the wearer's basic attack and skill damage by a certain percentage. Increase the crit damage of their ultimate by a certain percentage. This can stack up to 8 times. It's good. It really is great, but it honestly relies on you kind of attacking very, very frequently and obviously having extremely high amounts of speed. As it says here, for every 10 speed that exceeds 100, increase the wearer's basic attack and whatnot, stacking up to 8 times. So you can really only take that up to 180 speed, which is a lot of speed, by the way. 180 speed to get the full efficacy of this. So you have to run a speed build with this character, or you have to buff the character with speed buffs in some way, shape, or form. And so it's very reliant on that. But this is an incredible one to have, honestly. It's Sealy, and Sealy is known to be, from my understanding of a lot of clips that I've seen, Sealy is the best single target damage dealer right now in HSR. So a very good choice, obviously. And then Sleep Like the Dead. Increase the wearer's crit damage by a certain percentage, just a baseline crit damage increase, which is great. And then when the wearer's basic attacks or skill does not result in a crit hit, no crit, increase their crit rate by a further this percentage for 1 turn. This effect can only be triggered once every 3 turns. So this one's a bit weird. You do get a baseline crit damage increase. So if you're kind of okay with like just sometimes doing massive hits, or if you're kind of running a pseudo crit rate build through your relics, and you run this one, just have good base, and then sometimes get like even higher guarantee from this, it's okay. But the only reason that I can't like recommend this one wholeheartedly is that it only happens once every 3 turns. And if you're running obviously a crit rate, crit damage build, you're not running a super high speed build. So unless you like really have incredible substats, by the way, unless your substats are blissful, it's going to be hard to recommend this one. So my 2 recommendations, if you're obviously a diehard Dan fan, go for either Cruising in the Stellar Sea or In the Night. They're going to give you the best bang for your buck. But then again, my full recommendation comes from the 4 stars, which is only Silent Remains, because it's his signature one. Run this one. It's going to give you the easiest to play build without giving too much thought. But that's that. On to the next part, relic sets. The relic sets are very important. Obviously, stat min-maxing and whatnot is going to be extremely crucial to making your character strong. And we're just going to go with what I know is going to be the best for him, is 2-set Eagle of the Twilight Line, as well as 4-set Eagle of the Twilight Line, which gives you 10% wind damage, as well as after you use your ultimate, their action is advanced forward by 25%. So it kind of gives you, if you don't have that specific Eidolon for him, which is Eidolon 4, I believe. Actually, let me just cross-reference. Yeah, Eidolon 4, which advances after defeating an enemy, advances you forward 100%. This kind of makes up for that as well, is that after you use it, you don't even have to kill the enemy, but after you use it, you just advance forward 25%, making it so you'll probably be, like, have a double turn, which then maybe you can kill confirm, which will be quite handy, actually. But this is, I'm going to just recommend this as it's going to be the easiest one to do. Wind damage as well as this 4-set. And then the last one is a bit more dependent on what build you're trying to do. If you're trying to do maybe like a crit rate, crit damage build with that one very specific 5-star, or if you're trying to do maybe like a speed build, something along those lines. But you can go for Inert Salsodo, as it increases your crit rate by a flat 8%. And then when crit rate reaches 50% or higher, the ultimate, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up attack damage is increased by 15. So you get a lot more ultimate damage, being able to secure kill with your ultimate and get that one shot to get that 100% forward action or action forwarding. So that's a great one to choose, obviously, and it's a 2-set by itself, so great value for yourself right there. If you're looking for specifically high attack all around, Space Sealing Station is going to be the next best one because increase attack by 12% baseline, and then when speed reaches 120 or higher, get another 12% attack, which is, well, 120 speed is not going to be impossible to achieve with Dan Heng's speed boosting capabilities. And obviously, if you have another speed boosting character like Asta, as we've covered, check that video out if you want to check out how Asta plays. It won't be too hard to reach 120 speed, even if you're not trying, so that's another great option. And then, again, if you want to maybe do a bit more of an ultimate-centric build, an energy recharge build, Sprightly Von Whack. And these ones I've been recommending a lot as they are just very, very good for the job that they do. 5% energy regen, and then when you're at 145 speed or higher, the whereas action is advanced 25 when you enter combat. Now, obviously, a bit more, specific, you will go first as Dan Heng, but it's not a bad one. A bit more energy recharge never hurt anyone when you're trying to do an ultimate build with him, as his ultimate is his main damage source. And that's pretty much it. I would recommend those ones. My last recommendation, and the one that I would probably play myself, is the Eagle of Twilight Line 4 set, and then Inert Cell Soto. That's probably going to be the one that I run with him because it just looks the simplest, and looks one of the easiest because crit rate is a great stat to get. And that's the character. I try to kind of go through this one a bit quicker because I kind of want to speed these up a bit because it's I can see this kind of becoming a bit repetitive, especially when we're covering the relics. The relics seem just very streamlined. They don't seem too intricate as of yet. Who knows? It could become a lot more intricate later on as we discover new things and discover how the game works. But right now, they're pretty standard in terms of the set effects. A bit bigger part, what I've read in the comments of the previous two parts of the analysis, is that the harder parts with the relics is actually the substats. The substats are a pretty tough thing to actually manage and kind of get correct. So that's a bit more important than the actual relics and the actual set bonuses. So that's why I make loose recommendations and kind of just some generalized stuff because it pretty much feels pretty generic with the set bonuses. DPS characters go for the DPS ones, your support characters go for the support ones, and Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be Dan's character analysis. Dan Heng, great character. You get to get him early and have fun with him. This has been the third one, and obviously there's going to be more. Hope you enjoyed. HSR analysis. Catch you guys in the next one. Obviously, leave comments of what you think I could improve on, and if there's anything I can improve on, by all means, like, subscribe, and have a great day. Bye.